the Leon Charney Report. And now, here is your host, Leon Charney.
Welcome to another Leon Charney Report, and obviously the whole world this week has been mesmerized by the untimely death and accident that happened to poor Princess Diana of England. And you've seen so much television on it, you've seen so many reporters, you've seen, everybody's been over there. The Today Show, the Tomorrow Show, the Tonight Show, every show has been talking about Diana. And I have to tell you that we're taping on a Wednesday, which is before the funeral, so we can't comment about what happened at the funeral. And what we're going to do is try to explore, the cause and effect of what happened. And we're doing it with a very renowned celebrity photographer called Aubrey Rubin. And you've seen his pictures all the time in the New York Post and around the world. And the opening of the show was a picture taken by Aubrey about 5 years ago when Princess Diana was going through a terrible time. And the lady next to him is Sammy Davis's wife, Altoise Davis, and it was, I think, a tribute to Sammy Davis. And Aubrey spent a lot of time, or at least a half hour, with Princess Diana. And the funny thing about Aubrey, it's not so funny, he was born in Manchester. So he was born in his passport originally. He was part of His Majesty's government, I guess. I mean, you're a citizen of England at one time, Britain, right?
That's correct. I came here when I was 15 years old. I spent the first 15 years of my life in Manchester, England.
Aubrey, welcome to the show. I'm sorry we didn't bring you here on better occasions, but you're a celebrity photographer. And before we get into this paparazzi business and celebrity photography, can you believe in your fondest or wildest memories that one woman could mesmerize the world like Princess Diana did? I mean, just totally mesmerize the place.
When People magazine celebrated its 20th anniversary, they invited those photographers who had covers. I was one of the lucky ones to have a cover on People.
She had 43, by the way, on People, huh?
Right. And the question that they asked us at the party was, who do you think has been on the cover of People more times than any other woman? And everyone thought Elizabeth Taylor.
16.
And then they were amazed when they realized it was Princess Diana. But that's just America. The entire world followed everything that Princess Diana did. It was amazing. It was like a soap opera being played out, but in real life.
But there's something deep to understand here. This is a woman, 36-year-old, not that well educated, comes from some kind of royalty in a sense, or at least peerage, and just a good woman who went out and did good deeds and had no formal backing after a while. I mean, she was divorced, she was disowned by the Queen of England, and she went on her own merry way, but she had this enormous power. Now, we see evil people like Hitler, who took over the world, or Stalin, who murdered masses of people. In a way, it's beneficial to see that the world respects someone who did good, and she's capable of bringing so much outpouring. Do you understand?
Oh, definitely. I met her, of course, briefly 5 years ago, but this was in the height of the royal scandal. It was June 23rd, 1992. Liza Minnelli walked into Elaine's a week before and said, Aubrey, if you come to London with me, I'm going to do a concert at the Royal Albert Hall for the Royal Marsden Hospital Cancer Appeal. Now, Princess Diana has been cancelling everything she could, but this she will not cancel because it's her favorite charity and so forth. So I went, and sure enough, in the interval at the concert, for the patrons who had spent large amounts of money, they were given a champagne reception with Princess Diana and Altoise, who was the co-chairman. So I went with Altoise, and I met Princess Diana, and I said to her, when I was presented to her, I said, I came 3,000 miles just to meet you.
5,000 maybe.
And she said, what a sweet thing to say. And after that, I stood on the side by Altoise, because I was escorting her to the reception, and I watched and listened as Diana spoke with at least 100 people were presented to each one. She had a charming remark. She was gracious. She was articulate. And this was a woman under great pressure. And I was amazed by it. So at the end of the reception line, Altoise turned to Diana and said, would you mind, Aubrey, if Aubrey takes a photograph of us? She said, I'd be delighted. And that's the shot, the one shot I took of Diana.
Well, isn't that true? But she lived with the photographers all her life. I mean, that's the way she
Well,
positioned herself too, isn't it?
Look, she was glamorous. She was very pretty, lovely figure. She looked like a model. She wore clothes beautifully. So she was naturally a photographer's delight. For example, the Queen of England is always photographed, but I mean, you can't imagine photographers swarming after the Queen of England the way they did after Princess Diana. Even the Duchess of York, Fergie.
I never met her, but I assume that she had a magnetism or charisma that attracted you. People like this just don't get...
She was shy. She was a little timid, but her vulnerability was part of her charm. You see, she wasn't compare her with the Duchess of York, Fergie. Fergie is outgoing, she's loud, she's brash, she's funny.
Have you met Fergie?
Oh, yes, yeah, many times, and I photographed her.
Did you go on Weight Watchers after you met her?
No. But the point is, she's an outgoing person, and, you know, one of the boys, you can imagine Fergie slapping you on the back, you know, and say, "How are you?" But Diana was the total opposite.
What's the buzz? Was there a split between Fergie and Diana?
Oh, no, they were very, very good friends. In fact, they supported one another when they realized what sort of family they had both married into, which is really one of the strangest families in the 20th century. Books and books are written about them, but there'll be more and more about them. There'll be more and more TV programs. When the Queen mentioned that when the fire took place at Windsor Castle, that seemed like nothing else could happen as far as tragedies for the royal family. But she mentioned this has been an annus horribile, a horrible year. And it wasn't only a horrible year, it's been a horrible lifetime of this royal family.
Were you how much time did you spend in you were born in Manchester?
Born in Manchester and lived there for 15 years. From 1932 to right through World War II to 1947.
So you went through the
the Blitz,
problems of
everything.
Duke of Windsor.
Well, of course, when the Duke of Windsor decided to abdicate for the woman he loved, that was 1938, and I was 6 years old, so I really didn't care very much one way.
Didn't affect your life.
But you know, reading history and reading about it, it's amazing how that incident was worldwide news, just like Princess Diana is today.
Huge, if you read history books on
exactly.
That.
So it shows you this is what people...
How many men would give up a kingdom to marry a divorcee or a woman?
Yes, it was amazing that he was so mesmerized, is the word you said earlier on in the program, mesmerized by this lady. Incredible.
All right. Photographers, that's your business. Right. You're a celebrity photographer. Right. You're not a paparazzi.
No.
Explain to me the difference.
Paparazzi came into our language from La Dolce Vita, the film, and that showed two fellows on scooters who would stay up 3, 4 in the morning outside the Via Veneto, on the Via Veneto, outside the outdoor cafes, hoping to catch a movie star drunk, so that they could get the photograph and get it in the paper. Or a movie star doing something ridiculous like jumping into the Trevi Fountain. So that's how the word entered and these are basically uneducated people, a person that couldn't get a job anywhere with any reputable media organization. They're violent, because they've got to get their photograph. They're vulgar, they're inarticulate, and you understand that when certain papers or magazines are willing to pay a great deal of money, because it's a simple thing to take a photograph. You don't have to be much of an expert for that. All you have to do is press a button, and anyone can take a photograph. And so they go after these celebrities, the ones that the tabloids want, and especially in a compromising position. Now, the photograph that was taken probably 500 feet away of what seems like Dodi Fayed embracing Princess Diana, they believe that paparazzi probably earned $1 million.
Really?
Now, when you are such a vile human being and you can't get a job anywhere, you can make $1 million with one photograph, it's quite a challenge, and that's why so many people are in the paparazzi field. There are more and more paparazzi today than ever before.
Are there many in New York City?
Oh, many. People who were doormen of buildings are now out using a camera. And other people like this, people that you would think would never.
Is it dangerous to the celebrities to?
Sure, it's dangerous because many of these paparazzi try to provoke an incident. I was told about a star on Broadway, a glamorous star on Broadway, who was followed by a paparazzi. She decided to go to Brooklyn to have dinner at Peter Luger's, and the paparazzi almost ran her car, her limo, off the road. They wanted so badly to get a photograph. I mean, it's absurd.
I think the biggest rap against these guys is the fact that witnesses have said that they were busy clicking pictures rather than helping people at the scene.
Well, that's the Good Samaritan law in Paris, which
I
will
wrote the
charge
Good
them.
Samaritan law in the United States, by the way, and it's a totally different law. When I was in law school, a doctor fell, not a doctor, someone fell in a theater on 72nd Street, in a movie theater, and the wife screamed, "Someone help me, someone help me." And I went across the street, I was a law student, and I tried to call a doctor, and he wouldn't come down and help the person. He said, because if I do help her, and I'm negligent, I'm going to get sued, so I want to stay away from it. And this was my third year law school, and I got very upset by it. You know, as a lawyer, I had all kinds of theories that law should be great and there's justice in the world. And so I studied the issue, and I found out that doctors really would not help people because there was a tremendous amount of lawsuits going on against volunteer doctors. In fact, what I found out, they changed their license plates. They didn't want to give you any symbol or show that they are doctors. So we wrote a bill called the Good Samaritan Law, which was passed in the New York State at the time that I was in law school. And I got a little bit of credit for it. And basically it said that unless there was gross negligence, the doctor would not be liable for helping a Good Samaritan. In France, it's the opposite. It's an affirmative action by you. If you see someone in dire straits or needing assistance, you must help them. If
well,
not,
obviously they didn't do that. What they did do was snap photographs. That was more important to them.
That is appalling. That is what's appalling.
Well, let me say this. I feel paparazzi are one step above hitmen who are hired by the underworld to rub out someone. They're willing to kill anyone for any amount of money. Now, greed is a cardinal sin, and this is what motivates paparazzi.
So you have a thug with greed together.
Exactly. In other words, the hitman uses a pistol, a revolver to shoot someone. These people do it with a camera. But the motivation is greed. They want money, and tons of money, and they are willing to cause all sorts of trouble. I just said before, some of these paparazzi actually go out of their way to provoke a celebrity, hoping that it's legal.
Right.
How many paparazzi? I think some of the paparazzi make more money in legal claims than they do in selling photographs. I believe this. I know one that's always injured all the time and always.
Who was the famous fella that used to follow Jackie Owen?
Well, we know that Ron Galella.
Right, they got a protective order.
Of course, the Kennedys were very powerful, and they were able to get a judge to stop Ron Galella photographing her.
They got a protective order.
That's right, and he realized that he had to stop doing that because he would have gone to jail.
When you call yourself a celebrity photographer, what does that mean exactly?
It means only one thing. I don't photograph landscapes. I don't photograph people in car crashes. I don't photograph criminals. I photograph celebrities, actors, movie stars, television stars, opera stars, ballet stars, sports figures, when they go to nice parties or occasions like that.
All right, do you ask for their permission?
Always. I would never photograph anyone without their permission. Thursday night, I was at Elaine's.
Go ahead.
Having supper in a quiet corner was David Copperfield and Claudia Schiffer. Now, I'd photographed them many times, and when they were leaving, I accompanied them out to the door, and I said, would they mind if I took a photograph? And they said they'd rather not. I said, fine. Returned to my table. I mean, it's no big deal. If they had taken the photo the week before, or 2 weeks before, Sylvester Stallone and Jennifer Flavin came right after their Copland premiere. They had a bit of a party, you know, with Harvey Weinstein and Miramax and so forth. And when they got up to leave, I said, would you mind having a photograph taken? And I know Jennifer fairly well. I just photographed them recently, the New York Friars roast of John Travolta and Kelly Preston. They said they'd be delighted. I took the photograph, And last week, for the first week in the Post, they doing a column by Anthony Hayden Guest about different restaurants. So the first restaurant, of course, was Elaine's. So in the ad on Saturday, the photograph of Stallone and Flavin that I'd taken just a few days before appeared in the ad.
Do you think first of all, he's telling the truth, by the way, because I've been out on the night sometimes in many places, and that's one way I met Aubrey. And before he took a picture of mine, he'd say, "Do you mind if I take your picture?" And I'm not saying I'm that great a celebrity, but I'm telling you what a decent person he is. So he's
and you did appear in Newsday.
Yeah, I've been up here, but you're a gentleman about it, and I never saw you pushing or mowing anybody out. And
I can't understand that type of behavior.
Think about this, because we're going to take a break. But do you think if the paparazzi would have said to Diane and Dodi, "Do you mind if we take your picture?" she'd be alive today?
No.
You don't think so? All right, we'll be back after break to find out why Aubrey answered in the negative. Don't leave us. We're back. I'm speaking with Aubrey Rubin, who is a celebrity photographer and has been such for about 30 years, and he's a gentleman, and he has permission from the celebrities before he photographs them, so he's what we call a decent human being and a very good photographer who's appeared all over the world. You're all over the world, aren't you? You're distributing.
Well, my agency is London Features, and they sell my photographs all over the world.
You answered negative to me before.
Yes,
about
would Diana be alive had she posed for photographs?
Right.
The reason why Princess Diana is dead has nothing whatsoever to do with paparazzi. The reason she's dead is that a driver drove so fast in a city. It's mind-boggling. I didn't know what the rate of speed was, but when it was discovered that the speedometer registered 121 miles.
Well, there's some denial about that today.
Well, it doesn't matter. The first thing I knew about Diana's death was when I saw on television a photograph of the car. That car was smashed so badly that anyone, you knew he was going over the speed limit, and then to find out even later that he was drunk going over the speed limit, that compounds the matter. She was killed because this driver drove poorly and caused the accident. Whatever the reason was that he was driving fast has nothing to do with it whatsoever.
Yeah, well, it would make no sense.
Yeah.
Even if a photographer's chasing you, you don't have national security atom bombs in your car.
Exactly.
Why do you have to go 140 or 120 miles per hour?
First of all, it would have seemed to me if you were being harassed by anyone, the first thing you would do is take out your cellular phone and call the emergency number for Paris, 911.
Or your bodyguard would do it.
Right, or you would call the French police and you say, look, I'm being trailed and this could be a nasty incident. Within a couple of minutes there would be a policeman there and that would have stopped.
You think it was a macho thing, that the driver was going to outdo the paparazzi?
No,
So it was a game?
well, there's been talk that he taunted the paparazzi, but look, nobody drives at that rate of speed. And being in a drunken condition, too, worse for any other reason than the man was a poor driver and he drove them to death.
Where were you when you heard about Princess Diana?
Well, I walked into Elaine's, my favorite
interesting
hangout.
place to be, though.
And Barry, the chef, said, Aubrey, did you hear the tragedy? I said, well, of course, I was at the hospital yesterday because Elaine herself had fallen and broken her hip, and I'd gone to see her on the Friday. He said, no, I don't mean Elaine. Princess Diana. I said, well, what happened? Well, she's injured, and the chauffeur and her boyfriend are dead. So we stayed a little while at Elaine's, and then we went up to the Rainbow Room. And going by NBC, there was the headlines which said, Diana injured and the boyfriend and chauffeur dead. When we got out of the elevator at the Rainbow Room, women were getting in crying and saying, oh, it's so bad that she's dead. And the lady with me said, oh, they don't realize she's just injured. But there are 9 television monitors in the passageway at the Rainbow. And sure enough, that's where I saw the photograph of the car, because I didn't realize exactly. And of course, it did mention that Diana had died. By that time, they had pronounced her dead. So then the shock came. When I got home about 3 o'clock in the morning, there was a message from CNN asking me to please call them whenever I got home. So I called and they asked me if I could just rush over there. So about 3 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, I was interviewed, and that went all over on CNN.
But the thrust of your interview on a Saturday night was the paparazzi did something bad here.
Exactly.
They did something bad here, and because of this event, Princess Diana was killed.
They wanted me to talk about the paparazzi, of course, and being the cause. But look, I have no love for paparazzi. I think I've made that clear. Just like hitmen don't impress me, paparazzi don't impress me. In fact, they're the scourge of the earth. You'd rather be away. These are the type of people you'd never want to meet in your entire life. So I feel sorry for celebrities being pursued by them. But I did make the point then, well, 2 points I made. I said the tragedy is this, that a 36-year-old mother has died in an unnecessary accident and left behind a 15-year-old and 12-year-old son. That is very tragic. It's not fair for the children. Secondly, the paparazzi had nothing to do with her death. They are not responsible for her death. Who is responsible for her death is the driver of that car. Who should never have been allowed to drive that car.
You know, it's interesting legally, if you take it forward under French law and even the United States law, respondeat superior, you're responsible for your employees. Now, Al-Fayed is he employed them through the Ritz-Carlton. So
Mohammed Al-Fayed, he was a security officer at the hotel.
So he's got a lawsuit against himself.
He certainly should. And of course, his lawyer is protesting that no matter what happened, no matter what we say, the paparazzi caused the death. Well, I'm sorry, that's not true.
I think it's a weak case.
I think it's no case.
But there is a case on the Good Samaritan laws we spoke about before.
That's a different story. And
what's the reaction of the celebrities with this Diana incident?
Well, today there's two interesting stories. One of George Clooney, who is trying to use his clout to just have the type of publicity. He thinks media is a publicity machine for him. So he doesn't want anything negative. So anything negative you can't say. Well, you know, this is foolish. I believe in freedom of the press, and I don't believe in Clooney trying to say, oh, well, Entertainment Tonight, or whichever one it was, they cannot have an interview with me. And other celebrities are doing the same. Rod Steiger got up and gave his 2 cents about this matter. There's something more important than this, and this is what bothers me. The jump on the paparazzi is not my concern. What is my concern is the jump on the freedom of press.
First Amendment?
Exactly. They want to, certain people would love to see the press just reflect good news, you know, just, oh, I'm a sweet man, I'm a loving man, I donate to charity. Oh, don't write that I beat up my wife. Don't write a fight that I had in public. Don't write, you know.
It's hypocritical. What they want to do is take advantage of the press when it's for their benefit.
Of course.
But if a guy's smoking
the biggest hypocrites are some of these so-called celebrities who don't have a brain in their head. They're authorities on family life, and then you find out that they're having illicit relationships and producing children, or they don't like homosexuals and then they're picking up transvestites. I mean, you can go every day, there's a scandal, and it's always because of a hypocrite. Molière was a brilliant playwright, and he showed about the hypocrisy of people. Just talk honestly and truthfully, and stop trying to throw your weight around because you make $20 million in a movie. That's nothing. First of all, half these movie stars aren't worth even 10 cents. The movies are awful, and they're not very bright individuals in the first place. I don't want to hear that pronouncement. I want to hear intelligent, well-educated people talking who know what they're talking about. And I don't want to hear from their publicists or their publicity-making machines because they turn my stomach.
All right. You're out every night, and you talk about celebrities all the time, and you photograph them, and you write about them, and you review them. How much pressure do you get from publicists to take their celebrities on every day?
Oh, we get it all the time.
You get a rush, right? Everybody wants to be in a newspaper. Everybody wants their name in a column.
In my pocket, I have 4 press releases from press agents who want me to appear at a certain place to take a certain photograph of a certain individual that they're, and they want me to get it in the paper. And they'll call me the next day, oh, was it placed, or will it be placed? Or, I mean, you would think that the most important thing in the world is not government or trying to run a nation or a world or trying to help people in distress or poverty. The most important thing in the world is to get this good-looking man or good-looking woman in a paper. Basically, it's the silliest of all things, but there's such an appetite for it. That's why I make so much money at it. Look, I don't do this for money, believe me, I don't need the money. But I'm amazed at how much money I get taking a person that I wouldn't give the time of day to in the ordinary way. People want that photograph. It's unbelievable.
All right, so that brings us to the other topic about these tabloids who really create stories many times, where they juxtapose pictures which are not real. What should be done with the tabloids, or does the First Amendment protect them?
First Amendment protects them.
And
Look,
how about the supermarkets?
You have the right to watch any program you want on television. If you don't like the program, switch it off. You have the right to pick up any magazine, any newspaper on the newsstand, any one you want. If you don't like it, don't. The hypocrisy of people is what turns my stomach. Oh, they talk to the man in the street or the woman in the street and say, oh, it's disgusting, they should get a hold of the paper, we should boycott all the tabloids. They're the very ones who are reading them. Because 5 million people don't go out and buy.
That's exactly right.
When People magazine was created, they created it just as a celebrity magazine. And basically, you don't have to read anything there. It's photographs and little stories and all celebrity stuff. It's the most successful magazine that's ever been launched in the last 30 years.
You sell pictures to people?
Well, my agency does. I don't. I only take my photographs in to the New York Post every day, and they have the first right to look at them and choose them if they want. Sometimes I might have 2 to 4 photographs a week in the Post, and I'm very pleased because it's a wonderful newspaper. And then
It's highbrow. It's
a good newspaper. It calls it like it is, and I'm very proud to be in any way associated with the New York Post. And then the negatives are picked up by a messenger and taken to my agency, and they try to sell them all over the world. So a couple of weeks ago, I had a photograph in People magazine because they were doing the story of Marla Maples breaking up with Donald Trump. And I had one of the first photographs ever of Marla Maples when the first breakup between Ivana and Donald was caused over Marla. I made quite a lot of money.
You know Donald Trump?
Maples. Very, very well. And I know Marla and Ivana.
Do you think he enjoys the paparazzi or enjoys being photographed?
Oh, I think he loves being photographed. I think you won't believe this, but I've seen more. I think the second most photographed person probably in the world after Princess Diana is not Elizabeth Taylor. I think it's Donald Trump. It's unbelievable.
And he
He's in the
enjoys
paper all the time. Oh, of course, he loves it. He thrives on publicity. He's a master of publicity.
I met him on an airplane. I'll tell you, he was a total gentleman to me. He came over on the airplane and said, "Hi, my name is Donald Trump, and just want you to know I enjoy your show." I found him to be
there's a perfect
total
I've always enjoyed being in his company. He's been a good friend. He's been pleasant. I was at his 50th birthday party. I really enjoyed Donald. I like all the Trumps.
What I'm going to only ask you about good celebrities, because bad celebrities will question it and then we'll have lawsuits. And we don't need that.
I have nothing bad to say about anybody.
Name me 5 or 10 great celebrities in the world today.
Well, all right, celebrities. Julie Andrews. I got to know Julie Andrews as she made Victor Victoria. She is one of the most beautiful, charming, just a pleasure to be with, good-humored. And I'm proud to say that on my wall, I have a photograph of Julie Andrews, said, "To Aubrey with love and thanks, Julie," and I treasure that. Liza Minnelli, I'm crazy about.
Well, you went to England with her.
That's right, and I went a month ago to Boston with her. She said, "Aubrey, I want you to take off Friday and be my guest in Boston. I'm doing a private concert, and, I'll take care of you." So I said, "Okay, Liza, on one condition. Separate rooms." I said, "Now, if you can't swing that, twin beds." Now, that's a joke. But we went.
Was that a tough battle?
We picked up Cy Coleman and his fiancée, and we flew up, and we went to see the concert. And after the concert, I told Liza and Cy to hug each other, and I took the photograph, and that photograph appeared in the New York Post, and I'm very proud of that.
All right, so we got two.
And she wrote on this photograph, I love you, Aubrey, Liza." I mean, just things like that.
But you slept in separate rooms.
Yeah, separate suites. And then I'm a Broadway critic, and I love Broadway. And I would tell you that these are actors. When you go to the theater and see people perform on stage, because it's not like a movie where they do 5 seconds and then they edit the movie anyway. These people have to have the talent and ability many TV and movie stars cannot do theater.
All right, we had Princess Grace, you had Princess Diana,
Right.
and you had Jackie O, who were world celebrities. I mean,
Right.
you could say Madonna's a world celebrity also,
Certainly,
obviously.
yes, she's famous.
And you can say Michael Jackson is a world celebrity,
No question about it.
absolutely. But someone who had sort of the grace and the etiquette and the glamour, it's packaged differently. I mean, they're not show business personalities. These were world figures.
Well, celebrity. Look,
You think Hillary can become a world celebrity?
No. Look,
How about Bill?
definitely not. He's a joke. I mean, I'm
Are you
glad he's
Republican?
president.
Are you Republican?
No, I'm non-political. I just feel that, you know, I like to have presidents like Clinton and many of our other, Millard Fillmore, people that's why we won't have a dictatorship in America. I believe in separation of powers and checks and balances, and I love to have a president who's not too strong. I don't want to see any president run for president 4 times. That was wrong.
Which would sell quicker? A photograph of President Clinton or a photograph of Liza Minnelli?
Liza Minnelli, nobody wants Clinton's photograph. They have to take his photograph because
get it anyway.
we have to know what he's doing at all times. We must know where the president is.
How about Jerry Ford or Elizabeth Taylor?
Well, Jerry Ford is an ex-president, so he doesn't count. Once you're an ex-president, who remembers Jimmy Carter?
I do.
I mean, well, you do.
Spoke to him
well,
today.
Of course. But I mean, you know, very few people do. Or President Ford. Nice people. I photographed both of them. I like them. I photographed virtually every president that, you know, since I've been here. But the truth of the matter is that more people are not interested in politicians.
That's true.
They're
That's
interested in celebrities.
How about
people with
Mrs.
glamour.
Reagan? How about Mrs. Reagan?
Love Mrs. Reagan. I've photographed her many times. In fact, there's a story. She had lunch at the Water Club with Patty Davis. And I heard about it, so I was invited over to the Water Club, had lunch, and when I waited until she got ready to leave, and I'd already photographed Patty Davis because she had posed for Playboy. So as they were coming out, I said to Patty, would you ask your mother if I could take a photograph of the two of you? So she said, Mother, do you want to do this? And she said, perfectly okay. Took the photograph and we ran it.
Nice. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about Great Britain. It used to be Great Britain. It's getting down to United Kingdom and out to England.
Yes, they may have separate parliaments.
Yeah, Scotland may have a separate parliament.
And Wales too.
By the way, on the record, I think Tony Blair acted very nicely, and he seems very personable, and there's something about him that's moving England a little bit.
Yeah, well, they call him the American Prime Minister.
It works.
Because he's got that manner. But he's bright and intelligent, and up to now, he's done okay.
All right. Do you think, this is a very tough question, do you think the Windsors, the royal family, are dysfunctional?
Oh, I don't think. I'm not a psychiatrist, so I can't use that word dysfunctional. But as I said, they've provided one of the greatest soap operas of modern time, and it's not on television. It's right there. No one can believe that 3 out of the 4 children are divorced. And the reason the 4th isn't divorced, he's never been married.
That's right.
Supposedly he's going to get married. Even the rest of the royal family.
You're a former Englishman. Why keep the royal family?
Well, it's symbolic, it's traditional, it's been there a long time, so people say, why get rid of it? But I think as time goes by, more and more people will be a little dissatisfied with because they aren't a symbol of anything. They're not a role model for anything. They used to be, for example, it's the defender of the faith. They're the head of the Church of England.
Right.
Well, obviously, how can the Church of England respect people that are having adulterous affairs and going to be the next king? I mean, look, Queen Elizabeth has never had a scandal attached to her.
You think you'll be invited to Buckingham Palace to take a few celebrity photographs of the Queen?
Well, I hope I'll be invited for tea, but you know, you never can tell.
Take coffee. We'll be back after break, and we'll continue our discussions with Aubrey Rubin. Interesting man. It's not a gossip show. This is intimate conversations with a lot of celebrities and people who follow celebrities. We'll be right back. It seems to be in vogue right now. We're back. We're talking to Aubrey Rubin, who is a celebrity photographer, and he's got really strong ideas about the whole Prince Diana morbid affair, I would call it. In a sense, it's not an affair, it's a tragedy. And he says that the real problem, not the real fixation of the world, is the fact that a 36-year-old woman left 2 wonderful boys, and there's a lot of empathy and sympathy for that situation. But let's talk a little bit more about the protocol in England. This is Wednesday night, and we don't know what happens. This will be shown on Sunday. So far, the Queen has said nothing publicly, and Prince Charles has said absolutely nothing. And there's a scuttlebutt or rumor that Tony Blair wanted to really have a state funeral, and this is a neo-state funeral. And Prince Charles said this is a royal affair, like stay out of it, which could be the crack in the whole. The whole fixation about the royalty of England, and there may be terrific backlash here.
Well, many people do feel there will be a backlash. First of all, there's a coldness that seems to emanate from Buckingham Palace.
But did you see the heating system in that place? I've been in Buckingham Palace. There's no heat. There's a lot of windows.
So you think that's the reason?
That's why they get cold.
I grew up in Manchester, and we had no central heating. We used to have fireplace and put coal on and heat up the coal. And it was pretty cold during the winters there. But we had a warmth of family that made up for all the coldness of the house. But what we notice, all royal watchers notice that the royal family is incredibly cold to one another. They seem to have no warmth, no love for one another, and it shows. And of course, when people come into the family who just don't behave in that aloof manner that they seem to like to behave in that way, like, as I say, Princess Diana, Fergie, they came into the royal family and they were just out of place, and they had to leave the royal family. In fact, Anne also divorced Mark Phillips, and she remarried now another chap. I don't know. It's a poor family. You feel like there's really no love in that family.
All right, take me a step further and a step backwards. It looked like Princess Diane was going to marry Dodi.
Oh no, it's too soon to do. I mean, they only knew each other a few weeks. Come on, again.
There was an Arab report in Al Hayat, which is a very famous newspaper. In fact, we have a reporter from here on a lot, that Dodi had reported to his friends that he intended to marry this woman.
Oh, of course he'd like to marry. I mean,
so all right, so let's hypothetical. Nothing's going to happen. What would have happened in England, though, between an Egyptian marrying in the mother of a possible
first of all,
king of England?
His father is a persona non grata. He can't even get
what's the story there? Why can't he get citizenship?
Apparently he's been involved in a lot of shady nonsense with government politicians and so forth. And
is it that hard to get citizenship in England?
Well, it's hard to get citizenship anywhere in the world, I'd assume, unless if you've got some things against you.
You may not know. If I'm an immigrant, I'm from Poland. I think Ted Koppel lived in England for a while, and you become a resident there. Or Maxwell.
Yes,
I'm sure he became an MK. So he became a citizen.
All right.
So there must be. You're saying something.
There obviously is some reason why Mohammed El Fayed cannot become a citizen of England.
All right. So take it further.
What would have happened had they married?
Yeah.
Well, look, we know what happened in America, and the same thing would happen over there. Jackie Onassis had the sympathy of the entire world when John F. Kennedy was assassinated.
Right. So she went out with
She lost all that sympathy when she married Aristotle Onassis. Don't tell me she married him because she was in love with him. That's nonsense. He was very wealthy, and she wanted the money.
So you think the same thing would have happened?
Well,
but the difference is, Aubrey, we got to take a little further, though. This is a very intense show. Basically, we don't do gossipy shows.
Well, it's not gossip.
No,
we're just
I'm
talking
saying
about,
we're not gossiping now, but I want to take it further. Princess Diana, Jackie Onassis was not the mother of a king, and the citizens of the United States do not have to support John Kennedy and Caroline Kennedy. But Princess Diana, who will be married to an Arab, an Egyptian Arab, and her son would be the King of England.
Possibly, yes.
What would have happened over there?
Well, again, you're speculating.
That's obviously speculation.
Yeah. No one knows. I'm sure had Diana married El Fayed, England would have been really, the public opinion would have turned against her. She, you know, she was quoted just before she died as saying that I would leave England if it weren't for my children. She said this to a French newspaper. Now, the truth of the matter is, making that statement really tells, well, what does that tell her? What's her relationship with England?
Right.
Terrible. So had she married El Fayed, I am sure the reaction against her would have been tremendous. I mean, there's millions and millions of people in the world, all very eligible and possible lovers or husbands. Why purposely, you know, antagonize a whole nation? See, this is the one thing that, you're talking about the royal family. What bothers me? Queen Elizabeth she realizes her responsibility, and she's been a responsible queen. The children have never learned to be responsible. They're like spoilt children, and they are not responsible.
I agree with you, but why should we care? We're Americans.
No, because
why do we care? We do. I'm doing a whole show on this.
Because we do care, because if you don't have a model, then your nation is destroyed.
All right,
in
but
other words,
why
you have to have people to look up to, and we hope that these are your rulers, these are your governors. If everybody is an idiot that's in charge of your government, then what does that tell you about the nation? What does that tell you about the country?
I agree with you, but why should a United States citizen care that much about what goes on in Britain? I don't know the answer.
Well, of course, because the closest relationship of any two nations in this world is England and the United States. They're part of the same product of birth.
Yep.
They speak the same language, almost, and that's the reason. That's why an American couldn't care less, an English-speaking American couldn't care less about what goes on in a country that speaks a foreign language, because we're not very adept at foreign languages anyway in America. We want everyone to speak English. Okay, that's fine. Perfect to go to England because they speak English. It's as simple as that.
So Princess Diana was called the Princess of America because in a sense she broke away from protocol and she acted more impulsively, sort of like an American.
Well, that was what she was quoted as saying, I act on instinct, which is a mistake. She should have acted on good common sense. Because her instinct always led her astray and she did stupid things. I mean, posing in the bathing suits and being provocative and, you know, look, she manipulated the press too. She used to go out in her car and meet a journalist and tell them all sorts of gossip. I mean, this is not behavior of a princess.
Princess Diana, let her rest in peace, was not a saint. She was just a nice lady who was able to do good things for a lot of people, and she's like all of us. She had faults and she had great parts, and that's it. Remember Pierre Trudeau's wife?
Yes, very well. And some photographs of her were quite shocking.
Right.
But let me explain one thing to you. You see, you can't say she's an ordinary person. That's where you're absolutely wrong. If you take up a position...
She's an ordinary human being.
No, but you can't say that. Once you take a position, it's like Truman said. He didn't expect to be president, but he said, well, now I'm president, and the buck stops here. He had to take responsibility. And he wasn't he turned out to be a very good president.
Excellent president.
But when you take a position of responsibility, you either do it well, otherwise get out of the job. And this is anybody. If you're a school teacher, you better teach school and be a good teacher and not molest children. If you're a policeman, you've got to be a good protective soul and protect your citizens and not abuse them.
It's taking responsibility.
Exactly. Now, the higher you go in government, that's why Clinton has to behave better than he behaves.
That's why you're on this show today?
Why?
Because I took responsibility for trying to provide our listeners with the best personality who could inform us most about Princess Diana and the tragedy of Princess Diana, and I think we got it with you. We could have brought a lot of high-powered English newspaper guys on here who'd love to talk, and and they wouldn't tell you anything. Well, you're giving us the insights, so we appreciate it. It's not a joke, by the way.
Thank you, Liam.
And we're dedicating a full hour to this. Usually we talk about the Middle East, so Arafat's got a break this week, and Bibi Netanyahu took a break.
El Fayed brings in the Middle Eastern portion.
And it's interesting that, by the way, he didn't want his son buried in Egypt. He wanted his son buried in England.
London,
and he did it.
Yes.
And he got it done.
Oh, yes.
The future of celebrities, give me somebody who you think could come on the scene. Now, you don't think it can be Hillary Clinton that could become a world celebrity, such as...
I think Hillary Clinton is a very bright, intelligent lady. but she has
She's not
generated.
glamorous? Is she glamorous?
Well, she's become more glamorous since she became
Right.
the First Lady. And anybody can become more glamorous. You know, it's all a question of
A little paint and a couple of
right,
doctors.
and a little exactly. And I mean, for example, in America, no one should look bad. They shouldn't, because everyone should look their best. Because we are a great nation, and we provide this. We make people look good here. The problem with Hillary is that she has so much bad press that it will be impossible to overcome
She
it.
also made a lot of political statements. And
Well, she's toned down now, you know, because when he wanted to win a second term, she realized that she would be no help to him.
all right, so is there anybody on the scene, or there's really nobody on the scene who can do that at this
Well,
moment?
let me tell you a funny comparison. There was an article written about what happened to the great opera stars, because, you know, Pavarotti, Domingo, Carreras are going to leave the opera world soon. I mean,
Right.
just by age alone. And in the great days of the diva, we had Callas, and we had Tebaldi and Sutherland, really, Montserrat Caballé, really great opera singers. Now the question is, who can replace them? And looking over the whole scene, there's nobody to replace them. All these so-called new divas coming out are all being manipulated by publicity companies, by record companies, and they're not in any way or shape a great opera singer. And this is the same thing with great world leaders. Who's a great world leader today? Well, if you look in any nation, you find there are no leaders. You were impressed by Tony Blair. Right now, Tony Blair looks kind of interesting. But he's only been there 100 days or 200 days. We have to wait and see. Don't let's say how great they are until we see what they've done. It's always nice to tell after they finished how good they were.
All right, so give me a little back scratch here and tell me why John F. Kennedy was such a great celebrity.
You're talking about President John F. who was
John F.
assassin?
Yeah.
Well, he was incredible. He was good looking. He was glamorous. He had a glamorous wife. He was, you know, he could have. We still don't know if he really won the election. You know.
Yeah, but you couldn't touch him. The press
He was
couldn't touch
untouchable.
him. He was untouchable.
That's right, because he knew how to woo the press. He made friends of the press, and he was outgoing. But everybody knew about his affairs, but they kept quiet. Just like there are many alcoholics who nobody mentions that they drink. It's how you play. It's again publicity.
Can you define?
Good public relations.
You're a celebrity photographer. Can you define for me what a celebrity is?
Celebrity is very simple. It means famous. It means that somebody knows your name. Somebody wants to see your photograph. Everyone says to me. They did an article. A very fine, I can't remember his name. A fine columnist from Chicago came and he asked me the question: what makes a celebrity? Why should a photograph appear of a certain person? And I told him very simply, it's what the photo editor wants. It's as simple as that. Somebody in the newspaper said, I want that person, I want that photograph, and that's a celebrity.
Does it bother you that, let's take a man like Jonas Salk, who did a lot for the world in medicine, or there are other people who've done a lot in science, and they're not really celebrities, and you're out there taking pictures of God knows a movie star.
We're telling you, because they're glamorous.
Right.
Mention the Nobel Prize winners who have all done marvelous things. Nobody cares. A brilliant doctor who can save your life. Nobody cares, unless, of course, it's a beautiful, brilliant doctor. I must tell you a funny story. Amanda Green is the daughter. She's an actress and singer, and the daughter of Phyllis Newman.
Right.
And Adolph Green.
Right.
So at the opening of On the Town in Central Park, at the party, she introduced me to her boyfriend. And she has the boyfriend that every Jewish parent wants. He's handsome, he's Jewish,
Doctor.
and he's an orthopedic surgeon. Now, but you see, he's a handsome surgeon, so I could take his photograph with Amanda.
Well, Al Gore's daughter just married the same type of fella.
Exactly.
But he won't be a celebrity.
No.
Is John Kennedy a celebrity?
One of the leading celebrities in the world. Everybody takes his photograph because...
How many times have you taken this picture?
Oh, I don't know, many times.
You know?
I photographed Carolyn Bessette and him at the National Arts Club, and that photograph has been used frequently all around the world because then they got married. You know, Everyone thought he might marry Daryl Hannah and other people.
It's another example of power. I mean, he goes out with a statement about his cousin Joe Kennedy, and Joe Kennedy is not running for governor anymore. Now, if there's a cause and effect, we don't know. But the power of John Kennedy to make headlines about criticism of the Kennedy family was a tremendous event.
Well,
the power of Princess Diana to go to Bosnia and look for landmines.
He also found something to do for the last 2 years. You know, he didn't have much to do. Recall,
he took the bar 9 times.
He took the bar. And he passed it, and he became an assistant district attorney in the Manhattan, and he did try one case, I think a parking ticket, and I think he won, so we're very proud of him. But the point is that basically for all his life he's done nothing. And I don't think he hasn't shown much capability in any field. So finally they gave him this magazine, George magazine, to play with, and so that's given him a little clout. You see, when you own a publication, or you run a publication, all of a sudden you have a hell of a lot of influence.
Even if you do a TV show.
TV is the most powerful medium we have.
Do you know?
Newspapers
do you know how much mail we're going to get about you?
No, stop it, Leon. Let me tell you something, Leon. Newspapers and magazines are less important today because people don't read.
Absolutely.
That's why People magazine was such a successful magazine. It didn't call for much brain work. See, to read, you really have to be bright. And that's why we have so many. I love Liz Smith. She wants the literacy program, literacy volunteers and so forth. We should force, we can't force, but we should try to make everybody read and learn to read, because then their brains will be so much bigger.
Yeah, but I want to defend John Kennedy for a moment. I mean,
he doesn't need defending. He's wealthy. He's got plenty of defenders. You don't have to defend him. He's good looking. One of the the sexiest man in the world, the 50 most beautiful people in the world. Who needs to defend John F. Kennedy
But
Jr.?
He grew up with a sack on his back because he was John Kennedy.
No. He grew up with a sack on his back because he had the misfortune to lose his father at an early age. That's the tragedy of John F. Kennedy Jr. Doesn't matter. Anybody who loses a father or a mother has a tragedy to bear, a cross to bear for the rest of their life. It's terrible. You're not telling me that Onassis was a father figure to poor John F. Kennedy Jr.?
No, I'm saying the curiosity about John Kennedy was so great that when he was 2 years old, he was marching at the funeral of his father.
We have so many president's children that nobody cares about. Nobody pays any attention.
Exactly.
But you see, because John F. Kennedy Jr. was the sexy man in the handsome, following the Camelot idea. Plus, the Kennedys have always had great power over media and publicists.
Are they finished now? Are they going down?
Well, they're going down the drain tremendously. They've gone down the drain for years.
And I've met a few of these Kennedys. There's a touch of arrogance there.
No, they are America's royal family. But the Rockefellers, who are America's royal family, were quiet.
Very different.
And different.
Very different.
They knew how to handle their power. The Kennedys were too showy. And this great word, hubris. It's when you think you can do anything and then God strikes you down.
Super ego, in case you didn't know.
All right.
And I agree, that's what's bringing them down.
Oh, it is. And also, none of them have any moral values. How can you respect people who want to annul the wife's never been married because of, whatever religious reason and so forth, or who want to sleep with a 14-year-old babysitter, or,
16.
What? Oh, 16, thank God. All right, but when you think about this, it's mind-boggling. And you say, these people want to run for president, these people want to run for governor, these people want to be a congressman. Why? They're morally defective. Let them enjoy their own private lives, but don't be the public servant. That's the hypocrisy. Anytime someone says something in general terms and then practices the reverse, I don't want to hear that person. I don't want to see them. If you want to do public service, you've got to be as clean as you possibly can be, as morally good as you possibly can be, as honest as you possibly can be.
If that's a fact, we'll have nobody.
Well, that's true, but that's why we catch all the politicians and all the crooks.
There'll be no politicians.
They want me to spend my taxes on them so that they can have a good time.
What's your opinion of shows like Hard Copy and Extra and all that stuff? What do you think of those shows?
Well, I go out 365 nights a year, except leap year when I go out 366. I don't watch television. In fact, when I have to photograph a television personality, I really don't know who they are because I've never seen their program. And I don't VCR that type of stuff because it's not. The only thing our VCR would be live from the Met or ballet or something that I feel is worthwhile and enriching. I'm not going to. What they've done in television is saw the success of tabloids, like the supermarket tabloids,
right,
and tabloid newspapers, and they have successfully made them the most popular programs on television.
So you think Fran Drescher was on Larry King the other night screaming about people should stop buying Globe and Star and all that. You think that's a joke, don't you?
Well, I think it's censorship.
And
look, you buy anything you want. You've got $2, buy what you want. It's none of my business what you buy. I don't care what you read.
Did you see the statistic that The Sun, which is an English newspaper,
yes,
a big tabloid, sold
right,
1 million more papers
of
the
course,
next day when they showed the crash?
Of course.
So it's all senseless. No one's going to stop doing anything. This poor woman.
Censorship, we've seen censorship in Nazi Germany, in Franco Spain, in Stalin Russia. Why do we need censorship? Who are these people calling for censorship? Mind your own bloody business. Censor yourself, not me. I don't need censorship by anyone, and I refuse to have it. And that's why I open my mouth and say anything I feel, if it's, logic.
So
no one has
we
to
got
listen
1 minute,
to me.
Aubrey. You don't think anything's going to change in the media as far as this?
No, it's going to
paparazzi?
be a brouhaha for 6 months. They're going to try to come on strong against the media, which will be a mistake. And I tell you, every journalist in this country, every photographer in this country, every editor has to stand up, whether it's print or it's television, it doesn't matter what. They've got to stand up for freedom of speech.
You've heard it, the last word from Aubrey Rubin, a celebrity photographer born in Manchester, England, says the paparazzi were not the cause of the death of Princess Diana, that it was really a driver who was running at exorbitant speed, and that the paparazzi are a bunch of thugs, a little higher than thugs, who are greedy and thuggy. That's a nice, nice name. In any case, we gave you an hour full of what it looks like in that type of world. We'll see you next week.